All right, welcome back to Blue by 90. I'm Justin, joined by Tanner today, and we have a special guest, our guy Alex from Armchair Illini. He is on the Full Ride Network with us, so head over to armchairillini.com and check out some of his stuff. And you're at Armchair Illini as well on Twitter, so go check it out. But Alex, appreciate you for jumping on with us, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having us. It's nice to finally get on a talk with you guys. Excited to talk about this game.
For sure, for sure. Yeah. I don't know that many people would have thought that Michigan versus Illinois would be a ranked matchup midway through the season, but the Illini are looking pretty damn good. Michigan's holding on barely to a what are we 24, I think, in the rankings. So I don't know if I'd call it a heavyweight matchup, but we'll take it. So there's a little more juice to this week, to this game, than in past years, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, there's a lot of juice. I mean, if you told me before the beginning of the season, or any Illini fan, that Michigan and Illinois would be a ranked matchup, and not only that, but Illinois would be ranked higher than Michigan, the defending national champs, we would have probably called you crazy. So there's a lot going for Illinois. This is a huge game for them. Obviously, with the rededication game being one thing, but Illinois can clinch a bowl game if they win this game.
True.
This is one of their this is, I think, their second sellout of the season, and it feels like second sellout of the decade. That's where this program's at. And if we can clinch a bowl game, I know Michigan does it every year, but for us, it's a big freaking deal to clinch one bowl game. So there's a lot riding on this for Illinois. And then given how the last game kind of went, at the big house, there's some controversial stuff at the end. Our coach Brett Bielema was a little bit salty.
He's been salty since. Like, I feel like we why don't we jump into that, because I feel like that sets the table for this, like you said before in the pre-show when we were just chatting, like it's kind of like an under the radar rivalry here. Like hoops, we've gone back and forth. I know, Brad Underwood is 7-0 against Juwan, I think, right? So obviously there was a lot of back and forth there, and then Bielema has straight up, even in non Michigan press conferences, just taking shots at Michigan. I think there were some comments about the Stallions thing last year and everything too. So let's start there. Why does Brett Bielema hate Michigan so much?
Yeah, I think it goes exactly to those two things. That controversial ending where there was kind of a pick play. It was like a fourth down, I believe. JJ McCarthy had the ball. And there was a pick play where, I think a DB got screened by a wide receiver or something like that. Michigan got the fourth down and then kicked a field goal to win it. I think it was Jake Moody. So I think that really ticked Brett Bielema off during that season. I think it was our best season in a decade. I forgot what exactly the record was, but I think we were at 7-2, 7-3.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the way that ended, and then the whole Stallions thing, obviously a lot of, different schools have different opinions, but I think Brett, if there's any kind of little subtle knock, you saw what he did with the Penn State thing earlier this year. If there's any way that he can be a little bit petty, I think Brett takes that to another level. So I think that's thing. And then I think the hoops thing lays the foundation, right? Obviously, like you said, with Brad Underwood, but then the Terrence Shannon thing, where supposedly he was committed to Michigan, Michigan, that mission struck again, ends up at Illinois, ends up being one of our best players of all time. Yeah. So there's a lot of different chunk stories that I think build up to this. And then our coach is petty.
That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Correct.
Tanner, you're a Bielema fan, right?
I mean, I think he's a good football coach. I just don't know why he feels any press is good press when you're, in the Big Ten West at that time, right? Not get as much love as the Big Ten East. Just rest in peace to those divisions. I don't know what the hell's going on anymore, man. Still a little confused on the whole new Big Ten. Still, I don't know if I can count all 18 teams, Justin. So it's a little bit craziness. But no, man, I wanted to know, what are your thoughts on this offense this year? I mean, Altmaier last year was not great. I know he had some injuries that he battled through, but he's 14 touchdowns, 1 pick this year, completing at a solid clip. What's changed with Altmaier? Because last year he was, like I said, he was less than ideal.
Yeah, I think he's just learned to take his time more. I think last year with his first time starting. He's at a new school. He transferred in from Ole Miss. I think he had some happy feet. And then his receivers, as good as what they were in Isaiah Williams and Casey Washington, both guys who are in the NFL, they struggled getting separation. So I think all those different things kind of played into his struggles last year. And then just him calming down, he's done a really, really good job of just staying calm and not putting the ball in harm's way, which was his biggest issue last year. And then having two really, really good wide receivers helps with that. Pat Bryant, Zachary Franklin, another transfer from Ole Miss. He's like 26 years old. So, of course, he's got to be really good. But having those
our QB's 25, so we're not haters right now.
I was gonna say, I think Tuttle's been there since I was in college in 2017. So
get a doctorate.
Yeah, literally, he's got his doctorate. It's like one of those guys in basketball who has like 7 years of eligibility. But I think it'll be cool to see how Tuttle does, because he only played like a half, right? Or 3 quarters?
2.5 quarters.
Yeah. So it seems like the Davis Warren era is officially over, huh?
Davis Warren era is officially over. Alex Orgy's officially over, I guess. I who knows? I mean, I don't think we truly know like what to expect here, right? He came out hot, and I think it's one of those things when you go into a game like that, and like sometimes you can just be the spark that everybody needs, right? And so they go on a 17-0 run to take the lead, and he's like, all of a sudden our offense is moving like we haven't seen it move all year, right? But then immediately also at the end of the game, 2 turnovers to lose the game too. So you saw like us go, all the way to the top kind of, and then all the way back to the bottom. So it's hard to say. Like, I don't know, if those eras are over. Like there's a chance that we see Alex Orgy again, or even Davis Warren again. Who knows, right? So hard to say for sure. But I think to Tanner's point, it will be very interesting. Michigan's defense has, obviously struggled this year, which we never would have thought that we were saying that midway through the year. That this defense is what was supposed to be carrying us to 10-2, 11-1, possibly, right? And so I think I'm really interested to see what an Illinois offense does to this defense, especially after a bye week for Michigan, where maybe they were able to put some things together and make some adjustments.
Do you think the bye week helped?
Sure hope so.
Tanner, jump in there.
I sure hope so, man. I mean, we talked about this before they went to Washington. It was the first away game of the year. They had started out with 5 straight in Ann Arbor. So the thought is, all right, you go on the road, maybe you find something. It's, kind of backs against the wall a little bit, even though they had been winning, but it wasn't, in an extremely impressive fashion. So I think there was probably a lot of feeling, can we get right? Can we get back to the form that we've been used to? And our hope was that on the road, you kind of reset. It's kind of you versus the world mentality. And unfortunately, they weren't able to get the job done, had made some mistakes against Washington. So you come into this bye week and it's like, again, maybe just an opportunity to reset, to get the head right, and for some of these guys to do some soul searching of, hey, yeah, we were on a team that won a national championship last year, but what do we want our legacy to be in our last year? There's a lot of guys that are seniors and that are going to go on to the NFL after their junior year. So, yeah, I hope it's a good thing. It's really tough to know, man, because every time we've thought we've known something about this team or coming in, off the off season and like, oh, we've got, this, that, and the other thing, really hasn't come to fruition outside of a couple areas. So it's tough to tell.
Yeah. Is there I was really curious, is there a specific, it's hard to call out a player, but is there a specific player that you feel like has been kind of underwhelming and hasn't really carried the load that y'all thought he would?
It's hard to say. I don't know that it's one guy. If there's one guy that we're pointing to, it's probably the D coordinator more than a player, I would say. It's Wink has come in. He was supposed to be the godfather of this defense, right? And he was the one who created essentially the same defense that we've run the past 3 years that brought us to, all the Big Ten championships and the national title. So I think most people are looking to him. But, if we're being honest, I definitely think the secondary has been underwhelming, right? Will Johnson has been, he's a top 5 pick in the draft next spring, but he's had his own struggles, and it's hard to say if that's him, if that's the scheme, if that's them not having him prepared, if he doesn't have the signs, you just never know. But but I think Will has definitely been underwhelming. Makari Page is a 5th-year senior, I believe, maybe even 6th. Am I wrong on that, Tanner? But we've got some veteran guys in the secondary that have struggled, that I don't think we were expecting to this year.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I think the secondary has been extremely disappointing. You don't have Rod Moore, who's been a 3-year starter before this season, gets injured in spring ball. You go and you get some guys out of the portal, Mangum from Michigan State, Wesley Walker from Tennessee, Amir Halls from FCS school at Albany, where he was an All-American, and you feel like, okay, yeah, this is okay. We've got some highly rated guys that have been sitting on the bench, have been developing and kind of baking. And it just has not really played out the way a lot of folks thought. And then I think, Justin, you brought up the signs, and it just cracks me up when people talk about that, because I watched Jesse Minter completely change the Chargers defense. They were so bad last year, and this year they're one of the best in the league. And I think when you look at Wink Martindale's last couple of years in the NFL with the Giants, I think you're probably seeing that discrepancy in how good these guys are as coordinators, sadly. I mean, Wink Martindale's had a tremendous career. Sometimes, you get a little bit older and you're maybe not so quick to adapt as maybe a guy like Jesse Minter or Mike McDowell would be. And, maybe you're seeing the results of that. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
I think one of the big things that Michigan fans can definitely take solace in is that literally last week against Purdue, we're playing a 2nd-string QB, Hudson Card's out, and they just ran all over us. And Ryan Brown literally looked like Peyton Manning. He threw for 200 something yards. And this is a backup quarterback, freshman as well. So it's not that you even need to be all that impressive. I think if you can just take advantage of the Illinois front 7, which is probably the weakest part of the team, and I think Michigan can totally do that. I think Michigan can feel pretty confident in getting a win. I think defense, though, is where Illinois needs to really take advantage and get out to an early lead. I think if they fall behind, get ran all over, basically continue what they're doing against Purdue, then it's trouble. And the crowd gets deflated, and it just goes downhill from there. So I really hope that Illinois just comes out and really puts their mark on the game, builds up a little bit of a lead. Obviously, don't give it away like they did last week, but I think that's definitely going to be something to watch as the front 7 has really struggled.
Here's what I want to say real quick, Justin. Michigan's offensive line might be its most disappointing position group of 2024. So, I mean, defensively, the secondary, offensive line's been worse, right? I mean, those guys are just playing on talent, basically, it feels like, going back to our conversation about the defensive coordinator. So, on the offensive line, you've had a couple injuries. Their best offensive lineman, Miles Hinton, did not travel to Washington. So I'm assuming he's back this week. But the right tackle has been just not great. They've got a redshirt freshman in there who has just really struggled. At the center position, we've kind of been hearing for the last 3 off seasons, that Greg Crippen, he's a big-time recruit out of IMG, would have been the next guy up. And then the last week at camp, similar to the quarterback situation, somebody else swoops in and takes the job. So there's been a lot of shuffling. And then Crippen actually played because the starter up to that point, Dom Jadis, was injured. So, just a lot of shuffling. Justin, I know we want to add on the O-line, man. I have no idea what to expect from this team half the time, because when they actually hit their assignments and block, it looks like a functional offense. But it feels like there's just so many times they shoot themselves in the foot that cause issues in the run game and in the pass pro that just make it hard for Michigan to do anything.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that it'll be interesting because Michigan's obviously going to come out with a balanced offense for the first time since week 3 with Davis Warren in, right? At least having somebody back there who can throw the ball, and they're going to try to throw the ball. So, I think that obviously, Brett Bielema in Illinois have had 2 weeks now to prep for Tuttle. So we'll see how they do on that. But I think when you're looking at Michigan's offense, it's like, okay, can you have a balanced attack? Can you establish the run early with Kalel Mullings and Donovan Edwards, which Alex, you mentioned, it seems like that's what Michigan has to go to, even though you have Tuttle at QB who can throw it now. You still have to establish the run. I don't think they want to stay, get away from that, right? But can they have a balanced attack where it's like, all right, let's run, and then hit Colson Loveland for a 20-yard pass play, right? That's what I'm looking for. And I know I read on armchairillini.com one of your articles with that you guys have, I believe it's Xavier Scott, looking to have him back as well in the secondary. So I'm interested to hear from you what you think about his impact and what Illinois' defense can do to try to slow down. It's crazy to even say slow down Michigan's offense because they've slowed themselves down all year, but what they're going to try to do to stop Michigan.
Yeah, Xavier Scott's an NFL guy. He's a junior. He's been great. He had 2 interceptions against Kansas. He looks the part, and he's on his way to the NFL, likely after this year, I would say. So having him back, he plays the star position, which basically in Brett Bielema's defense is the quarterback of the defense. So having him back, I think that was part of the struggle of last week. He basically only played the first quarter and then had to sit out, and there was a lot of backups in. So hopefully having him back is what pushes Purdue's performance into kind of like what was a fluke. So I think it's really, really, really huge that he's back. In terms of the defense, though, one thing that has been a huge issue is the linebacker spot. And going back with that front 7, I think the front defensive line has been okay, but the linebackers, we're playing walk-ons, so it's been a huge struggle. And I think tight ends have a field day. And I'm not too familiar with Michigan's tight ends this year, but they usually produce some good ones. So that's going to be something to look for. And then especially in the RPO game, when you're establishing the run and the quarterback's pulling the ball, linebackers are huge. And Illinois' linebackers have been, outside of maybe one, have been walk-ons. So yeah, pretty notable.
And one thing too that Tuttle did show against Washington is that even though he's not Alex Orji and like super fast running QB, he was able to scramble multiple times for first downs. Obviously, the last one ended in a fumble, which ultimately lost us the game. Not exactly what you want, but I think we're looking for Michigan to exploit those linebackers. With the tight end game, with Tuttle scrambling, and then with Kalel and Donovan getting to the second level too. So I also want to talk to you about just like the juice of this game. I know we talked a little bit about that at the beginning, but like I don't know, you said it's second sellout of the season, I believe. This is going to be one of, if not the more raucous crowds in Memorial Stadium history, with the stadium dedication, just the hatred towards Michigan, ranked matchup, right, for the first time in a long time for these two programs. And you got this is also a huge game for the trajectory of both teams' seasons, right? If Illinois is able to win this, then this is like a signature win for their season.
Yeah, 100%. I think we're talking off air, but if we win this, it's bowl game, and that's huge. And not only that, you're going to be looking at 6-1. You got 5 more games left too, so that number only goes up. Obviously, making a bowl game is one thing, but to kind of make that statement when you've been a struggling program like Illinois, those opportunities don't come by very often. And with the sellout crowd, Illinois' football fan base is pretty well known for when things go wrong, they kind of start to disappear. So when you have them there, you gotta deliver. So I think there's a lot on the line for Illinois. Obviously, if they lose, I don't think it shoots their season down into the drain. But I think there's a lot that you can gain just by winning this game versus the national championship or the national defending national champs. No matter what their season's looking like, I think that name of Michigan, just beating them, goes such a long way. And then on your guys' end, looking at 4-3, I'm not sure Michigan fans can handle that reality. Just based off of what
no, Michigan had gone 40-3 the previous 3 years, so not ideal, right?
Yeah.
It is crazy to go from 40-3, like, we're averaging one loss a year, right? And then to go from that to three losses midway through the year, I think even though, obviously you lose a ton with Harbaugh leaving, with the whole offense leaving, with the whole defensive staff leaving, it's still a tough pill to swallow too. But I think on the flip side too is, we said this same thing for Washington, but you win this game if you look really good with Tuttle at the helm and the defense maybe switch some things up in the bye week, and it's like, okay, there's a lot of season left for Michigan to say, all right, maybe, you're not obviously like going. I think the CFP is still in sight. It's a long shot. There's no doubt about that. But like, there's a chance that then you can build on that. You have a chance to play Michigan State at home. You hope you can win that. It's a rivalry win. Then Oregon comes to town. Obviously, that's going to be a tough game. But I just think that, like, for Michigan, Tanner, we've said this like literally every week, but if it's a win or a loss, it changes the trajectory of the season. If you go 4-3, if you lose this game and go 4-3, I'm betting that a lot of guys just kind of pack it in, right? I'm not saying like it's easy to do that, right? When you're 4-3 and you've got a bunch of guys that are off to the NFL in a few months. But then, like I said, if Tuttle comes out and the offense is clicking and the defense has figured some stuff out, all of a sudden there's just like new energy that Michigan feels. And it's like, okay, we're coming home. You got some juice in a rivalry game. You want to go beat the shit out of Michigan State. And then it's like top 3 Oregon's coming back to town that just beat Ohio State. It's like, all right, you have the opportunity to go with, like, that's what I'm saying for this one. Like, you have the opportunity, to go beat a ranked Illinois on the road, have, one of your better wins, if not your best win of the season right now.
No, I'm with you, man. And I think to your point, that's all we've talked about, right? Is just, can you win and just keep this thing respectable this year, right?
You would have zero confidence. There is like, you're already defeated in your voice.
Man, look, I mean, I just didn't think this is where we would be in the middle of October, man. I really thought that this would be a team that would probably have one loss and would look a lot better and look a lot more competitive against Texas or USC, whatever game that I thought they would have lost. Obviously, they get smoked by Texas, won a close one against USC. So, I really don't know, man. It's kind of hard to have confidence when you just don't know what to expect. It's like every week there's, this is the third starting quarterback in 7 games. So, like, I have no idea, man. I want to ask you, Alex, because I thought the first however many games up to that Penn State game, I thought the Illinois defense looked pretty good. And I started thinking, wow, this might just be a Brett Bielema thing. Maybe not a Ryan Walters thing, right? With that defense, kind of bouncing back this year. What happened in that Purdue game? I mean, you kind of talked about it, but can you kind of point to maybe an overarching theme of like, what the hell happened? You give up 21 to Penn State. That last touchdown Penn State scores comes with under 2 minutes left in the game. It's a dogfight. And Penn State's a top 5 team right now, maybe a little overhyped. But then they play this Purdue team with their backup, and you're just like, what the hell? And you have a huge lead.
Yeah, I think it was a mixture of a few things. I think Xavier Scott being out was huge. But even before then, they looked kind of unprepared, which is what they looked like last year, the year after Ryan Walters left. They just looked really, really unprepared. Bielema, kind of touted it to just, hey, it was Purdue's backup. We didn't know much about him. But that was really, really eye-opening. You gave up 49 points, obviously an overtime game, but you gave up 49 points to arguably the worst Power 5 team with their backup quarterback.
That's what I thought going into that game. I saw that Purdue's QB was out, and I was like, they're going to score 0 points in this game.
Yeah. I mean, they were struggling even with him. Right. And then to give up 49 points, like even like double digits in general is kind of a lot in this situation. So I think they got to take it personally. I know it's kind of hoorah talk, but they got to take it personally and come back and have a better game, because a lot of people were even calling for the DC to be fired after that. I know fans can be a little reactionary, but if we had lost that game, I do think that would have been a legitimate thought and saying, hey, the DC, Aaron Henry, great guy. But he was pretty bad last year. And if you lost that game at home versus a backup quarterback, I think that's kind of indefensible. So,
and in a season too, like let's say you guys were 3-2 or something like that, right? And it's like not really that like important of a game, but if you have a chance to be on a 5-1 season, right? That's like okay, we're putting together a legitimately 10-2 season or something like that, but you lose it to Purdue's backup QB. Like I agree, and sometimes the saving grace is that you win it, but the reality is what happened on the field, right? You saw it, and you pull out a win, but it's like it is like holy shit, what happened there?
Yeah, I mean, literally, like when I think Altmaier possibly got a fumble, like at the end of the fourth quarter, and Wright posted it. That was like, and like I know you guys have probably had the feeling when Bama had that punt and then he dropped it right at the goal line. It's probably similar to that feeling where you're just like, holy shit, this is over. But it was really just unprepared football, and otherwise they've been solid. But I do think that teams are starting to figure out that linebackers really, really thin, and defensive line, past the guys that they start, it's a lot of true freshmen, and it's a lot of, redshirt sophomores, things like that, inexperienced guys. So I think when you run the ball as much as a team like Michigan probably does, it's going to wear guys down, and, teams just stick with it. And then, you saw what happened in that second half last week.
Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine that that's going to be Michigan's game plan. Even though Tuttle comes in and he's got the ability to throw, and that changes up the offense, I have to imagine that they're looking at what happened last week and say, hey, we've got two really damn good running backs. Let's just go and pound it and see what happens. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out for sure. I mean, I do have Joel Klatt actually went on his podcast. I know he's a Michigan, like he loves Michigan, right? I was with a bunch of my Michigan State buddies the other weekend. They're like, we hate Joel Klatt because all he does is talk about Michigan. But, he mentioned that he has this feeling that Michigan has a, turnaround in the second half of their season. And right here's the first opportunity. And I kind of have that feeling too. Like, I actually had a good feeling about the Washington game as well. I think Michigan wins that game if they start Jack Tuttle instead of putting him in midway through the second quarter and, basically throw away 3 offensive drives to get, dig him into a 14-0 hole. But so I don't know. I think I have a weirdly optimistic feeling about this. But I also know I just know that Brett Bielema wants this so damn bad, and he's going to pull out all the stops too. So for Illinois, this is again, it's a signature win for not only this season, but for Bielema and their program, because he just wants it so bad. I think he's going to try to pull out anything that he possibly can.
Oh, totally. He's definitely, that play that, that ended the last game where, Michigan kind of used the pick.
Yeah.
Bielema's definitely going to pull that thing out. 100%. Exactly.
It'll be like, I don't know if you saw the Lions at the Cowboys where the whole Dan Skipper thing, being eligible, and they were put him out at wide receiver. It's going to be that type of thing where he just wants to stick it to us no matter what.
Yeah. I think he's going to do the exact same play. I'm calling it.
I like that.
My thing about that whole situation was you allowed Michigan to drive down and get 3 field goals in the fourth quarter to win. You know what I mean? It's it's tough to have any sort of footing where it's you literally had so many opportunities to win that game.
Yeah. So, but you know how Illinois fans are, man. They focus it.
I think that's just sports fans in general. You're going to focus in it's the same thing with the Ohio State Oregon game this past weekend where Ohio State fans have been they're
look at the clock.
On, there was a play I saw somebody tweeted out it was 1 second went off the clock too much on an incomplete pass with 2 minutes left, and they're wish we could have had that 1 second back. And I'm okay, dude, if you actually dissect every play, you'll find something wrong with every play, right?
Yeah, totally.
So
Justin, I have one from last year. I saw an Ohio State fan. They were like, if only we had this play back, and it was just Kyle McCord's pick to run more. I made that up. No Ohio State fan actually said that, but that's what they sound like. Thank you. I gotta enjoy that one for as long as I can, boys.
Yeah, we do. We absolutely do. I'm not feeling too confident in going to Columbus this year. I'll say that for sure. So
it is Ryan Day though, so
you just never know with Ryan Day. You never know with Ryan Day. So, all right. So why don't we end it and wrap it up here with some predictions? I think we've all talked a little bit about what we think is going to happen this weekend, but Tanner, why don't you start us off here?
All right, I'm gonna go. I still feel like Michigan's gonna win. So I'm gonna go Michigan 27, Illinois 20. Just feels like a football score that would make sense in the flow of the game. So going with it.
I like it. Alex, what do you think?
I'm going Michigan wins. I've been in this situation too many times with the Illinois fan, sellout crowd, the moment's there, and they trip or something small happens. So I'm going to go 35-27, Michigan wins.
Listen, if we score 35 points, I'll be shocked and thrilled and everything. So I agree with that. I mean, I have a feeling that, and again, I have no reason to like think this at all, but I have this weird feeling that we're gonna like come out rejuvenated from the bye week, and it's like, all right, we had some time to reset, and I think Michigan's gonna come out. I think Michigan wins by 14. I'm gonna go like 28-14 Michigan. I think the defense figures it out, and then I think the offense. To your point, Alex, I think that it's one of those games where it's like 300 rushing yards. You know, Tuttle maybe has like 150 yards passing or something, but like it's just one of those things where Kalel Mullings they just keep riding him, and Illinois cannot stop him. That's honestly how I feel.
I can't believe we're gonna lose to Jack Tuttle.
You know, Alex, one thing you mentioned I didn't get a chance to speak on. You talked about tight ends. It's funny because Colson Loveland, who's he's working his way into the first round mock drafts right now. But it's funny, this was kind of his in 2022 against Illinois was kind of the first game where it's like, oh, this is a dude, right? So we'll see how he does his second game against Illinois. But I thought that was funny you brought that up because, yeah, that was kind of his breakout game for Michigan. And, almost had a touchdown that J.J. McCarthy missed him on. That was a wild game, by the way. Justin, I'm going to share my story of how I watched that game. You've heard it a couple times, but Alex, I want to share this with you. So it was my wife and I's honeymoon, and we were in Rome, Italy. And on that Saturday, my wife had booked a pizza making class at 6:00. Well, that's 12 o'clock Eastern time in the United States. And so I had to get a VPN. I had to get Fubo TV, I think, because YouTube TV would not give me the game. So I had to get a free trial of Fubo. And then before we left, I just put it on like ABC or whatever channel it was on, and had to like fast forward through it. So like I just lived in a glass case of emotion. And my wife saw the score. So she saw that Michigan had won. And I'm sitting there like on this bed in Italy, like freaking out. It's like, I don't know, like 9:30 at night or whatever it was. And we're not doing anything. So yeah, that was a weird game for me. Only Michigan game ever. Yeah. It was a crazy game, man. Blake Corum gets hurt. Like, no, that was a good one. So yeah, that was probably the best Michigan Illinois game in some time, I'd have to say. Except 2011.
Yeah.
Rich Rod.
Mm-hmm.
Tate Forestier comes in. That was a crazy game, man. Nathan Shieldhouse. That's a name.
Oh, yeah. What a name. But yeah, hope it's just as good, man. I mean, that last game, I really thought we had that. And Michigan was like at its peak too, and I was like, man, finally, we get them both in basketball and football. But either way, I know the fans will be at it, Michigan and Illinois fans.
Oh yeah, Twitter's gonna be fun for sure. So, well, check out Alex at armchairillini.com. He's got great stuff there. We're gonna be doing some like combo articles as well here too. So, really excited about that. And we were just talking before we jumped on here as well. Just gonna have some fun this basketball season. Dusty May, coming out. You never know. we've got high hopes right now for our basketball team after obviously the lowest of lows this past season. So, maybe Dusty can come out, avenge that 0-7 record that Juwan had. And I mean, you guys have a squad as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with the way the Beeline days went for y'all versus Illinois, I think we kind of took for granted how the past couple of years went, where Michigan really wasn't that good. And unfortunately, Dusty May's a heck of a coach. I think he'll have Michigan back towards the top again, unfortunately. But I do look forward to maybe more competitive games, Michigan versus Illinois, because I think at the beginning of the Juwan era, those were really fun. And I think both, despite like Michigan being a football school, I think Michigan fans still get pretty juiced for hoops, especially when it's Illinois. And
for sure,
you know how Illinois fans are.
We're more fair. I would say, I don't know about anybody else, but I feel like for me at least, I'm more fair weathered as a basketball fan, just because it's such a commitment, right? Like football, it's 12 games, right? And then whatever happens after that. Basketball is like, there was a game on Tuesday. Now there's one on Thursday, and
you gotta be hardcore for the Tuesday 9 p.m.
God, the USC tip off.
Oh man, yeah, and they finish at like midnight.
Yeah, like man.
Did you see also? This is a total aside, but Washington, I believe, is kicking off at 9 a.m. Pacific this weekend.
At home?
Not at home, but they're.
Well, they did that against Iowa too.
That's crazy to me that they're making them do that. Like that should have been a requirement that any of the West Coast teams, like, it has to kick off at noon or later on their time zone. Like,
well, I think you're forgetting one thing: money.
Yes. Oh, the TV networks just
they didn't care.
Yeah. We're on CBS?
CBS. Yep.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, hey, man, appreciate you for coming on. This is going to be fun. Again, we'll have some back and forth on Twitter, I'm sure, in the next 48 hours or so. So I'm pretty excited. But yeah, go check out his stuff on Twitter and at armchairillini.com. Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. We'll be talking soon, okay?
Of course. And for us, you can follow us at Blue by 90 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Blue by 90 Podcast on YouTube, and blueby90.com. We appreciate you. Go Blue.
Go Blue.